In this video, we are going to explore what is percent. So let's begin. So this is called a unit square or a unit box. This represents one box, and it is broken up into 100 individual boxes. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 10. So 10 by 10. So out of these 100 little pieces, 50 of them are shaded in. So we would say that there are 50 boxes shaded out of 100 total boxes. So if this is one big box, this whole thing is considered one big box, well then, we would say that 50% of it is shaded, and 50% is equal to 50 over 100, or we could read that as 50 hundredths, which is equal to 0.50 or 0.50, which is again read as 50 hundredths, right? 50 hundredths, or 50 over 100, which is 50 hundredths, so 50%. So what is percent? A percent means out of 100. So when you see 50%, what that means is 50 out of 100, which is the same thing as the fraction, right? 50 over 100 or 50 out of 100. So let's look at some examples and fill some stuff out. It says name the percent, fraction, and decimal of the shaded portion of each grid. So we've got this grid right here. Like I said, this represents one whole, and it is broken up into 100 little pieces, and we've got 10, 20, 30. 30 of those boxes are shaded, so we would say 30 out of 100, or 30%. Fraction, you can see the 100 is already written down here. So it's 30 out of 100, and the decimal would be 30 hundredths. Now, you may look at this and think, well, you can simplify 30 hundredths to just 3 tenths, right? Or 0.3, and that's correct. Or 30 over 100 would be 3 over 10. And how would that make sense? Well, if I look at each individual bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 10 of these, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 3 of those 10 are shaded, so we could say that that's 3 tenths. So 30 over 100 is the same thing as 3 tenths, or 30% is the same thing as 3 tenths, which is the same thing as 3 tenths down here. Just something worth noting. And we cannot simplify this percent at all. Let's take a look at this. How much of this box is shaded? Well, we've got 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So that is 20 out of 100, which is just 20%. Let's write that in blue. 20%, or 20 out of 100. That as a fraction is 20 over 100, or 20 hundredths, which is exactly what we're going to write for our decimal form. And again, 20 over 100 is the same thing as 2 over 10, which actually could be reduced to 1/5. So if you wanted to reduce further, you can actually say this is 1/5. And the decimal could be reduced or simplified to 0.2, or 2 tenths. And how does that make sense? Well, I can actually make 5 of these if I wanted to. You might have to break one of them up, but you know, it could be done. Let's take a look at the next one. We've got 4, 8, 12, 16. That is 16. 16 of those are shaded, 16 out of 100, which is 16%. Because remember, percent means out of 100. That is 16 out of 100. And yes, that can be simplified or reduced. And 16 hundredths is written like this, as in a decimal. Now, this fraction can be simplified, but this decimal cannot. But let's not worry about that right now. Let's take a look at the next one. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. 60 out of 100 is shaded, so that means 60%. And that is 60 over 100, or 60 hundredths, which is written this way. Let's take a look at part 2. They want us to shade the 100 grids to represent the given percent, and then record the decimal and fraction names of the shaded portion. So 40%, what does 40% mean? It means 40 out of 100, which is 40 hundredths, right? Well, actually, let's shade first. So that means I could shade this part. That's 10, that's 20, that's 30, and 40 right here. So 10, 20, 30, and 40. So 40 hundredths, which is written this way, or 40 out of 100. And if you wrote, instead of 40 hundredths, you wrote this, that's totally fine. You can write 4/10, which is the same thing. Let's look at next one. 70% means 70 out of 100. That means we are going to be shading 7 of those. I'm going to do this sideways just because why not? More fun that way. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There it is. 7, 70 hundredths, which is written this way. And as a fraction, 70 over 100. 100% means, well, that's simple. That means 100 out of 100. So we should be shading the whole thing. Kind of bled outside the box, but that's okay. 100% means all of something. And that's why we're shading the whole thing, 100 out of 100. Let's do the fraction first. That's 100 out of 100. And the decimal, well, the decimal, you might think that it might be this, but that's 1/10, so that wouldn't be correct. This is also 1/10. You might think maybe it's this, that's 1/100th. So what is 100 out of 100? Well, let's look at the fraction. If I were to turn the fraction into a decimal, you just turn it into a decimal by dividing, right? So what's 100 divided by 100? It is 1. So guess what? The decimal version is just 1. Now, if you want to add a decimal for the fun of it, you can say it's 1.00, 1.00, or just 1. So 100% as in decimal form is just the number 1. Number 8. You can tell this one's going to be weird because we've got 2 boxes. So this is 110%. 110% means 110 out of 100. And how can you have more than, if it's like out of 100, how can you have more than that? That's why we have more than one box. What this means is we're going to have to shade all of this box, all 100 of these little pieces right here, these. So we shaded all 100. And then we're going to have to shade 10 more. So that is 110. So what is that as a fraction? It is 110 out of 100. You might also say, oh, well, you know, if I'm going to change it into a mixed number, you could say that's 1 and 10 over 100. Or you might even say, oh, I'm going to simplify it further, 1 and 1/10. Yes, that is all correct. So think about it. 1 and 10 hundredths, that's one whole box, and 10 out of the 100 pieces. So what is this as a decimal? Well, it's 1.10, or 1 and 10 hundredths, right? Or you can simplify that to 1.1 as well, 1 and 1/10. All right, let's take a look at 9. 9 is when it starts getting confusing because we've got this fraction. They want us to shade this fraction and then write the decimal and percent. So shade 4/5 of this grid and record the name. So 4/5, how do I do that? Well, you're gonna need to break this up into the proper, break this up properly. So 4/5 means this box is gonna be divided into 5 equal pieces, right? That's the denominator, so 5 equal pieces. Let's divide this into 5 equal pieces. Let's actually start right there. That means we have 1, 2, I'll actually move that up a little bit. That's 1, 2, 3. Let's try that again. And now we have 5 equal pieces, right? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal pieces. This big square broken up into 5 equal pieces, and we need to shade 4 of those 5. So shade 1, and then another one, that's 2, 3, and then 4. Now, you can shade this one, but you can also just shade the one next to it. So that's 4/5. That is 4/5. So 4/5, what is that as a decimal? Well, let's write it as a percent. It is, I just shaded 20, 40, 60, 80 little pieces, so 80 out of 100. and that's what a percent is out of 100. So 80 out of 100, that's 80%. What is this decimal? It is 80 hundredths. You can also say 0.8. Real briefly, you may be wondering, like, how is this 4/5? Well, let's think about it. If we took 4/5, or if we took, wrote this as a fraction, we wrote 80 over 100. Remember, this could be simplified or reduced, right? You can divide both the top and bottom by 20. If I divided it by 20, I would get 20 goes to 84 times, and it goes into 100 5 times. So that's how you get 4/5, being the same as 80% or 80 over 100. You're going to have that same issue with number 10, 11, and 12. So let's take a look at 10 and 10 right now. 7 over 20. So we got to break this up into, we can say we can break it up into 20 equal pieces, or what I'm going to say is I'm going to break this up into 20 squares. So that's 20 squares, just like last time. Another 20 squares, another 20 squares, another 20 squares, and then you've got 20 squares down there. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, and it says shade 7 out of 7/20. Another way, I'm going to approach this a little bit differently. You're not going to shade, we don't have like 7 bars to shade, but what we can do is out of these 20 pieces, we're going to shade 7 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of those, and then 7/20, another 7/20, another 7/20, and another 7/20. So what percent, or how much of it did I shade? 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. So I just shaded 35 out of 100 of those little boxes, which means 35%, or 35 hundredths, another way to think about it. And if you are not sure, just think about it. 35 over 100. What can you divide both the top and bottom by? Well, how about 7? Oh, sorry, not 7, 5. 5 goes into 35 7 times, and 5 goes into 100 20 times. And so that's how you get 7/20, turning it into 35%. Let's try the next one, 13/20. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take these, and I'm just going to break it into 20s. Let's see. Same thing. Whoops, let's try that line again. Close enough. All right. And this time I'm going to shade 13 of them. So 10 and 3, another 10 and 3, another 10 and 3, another 10, another 3, and another 10 and 3. That's 13 for each of these sections. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I've got 50 and 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So 50 plus 15 is a total of 65. So 65 out of 100, which is the same thing as 65%. That as a decimal is 65 hundredths. So let's, and of course, if you reduced 65 over 100, guess what? You're going to get 13 over 20. Last one, 17 out of 25. This one is tricky. 25 boxes. I mean, I can do like 10, 10, and 5 and break it up that way, but I know that like this big box, this one big box is separated into 100, and 25 is 1/4 of that. So you can actually break this up into 4 equal pieces. So right now, if I break it up that way, I got 50 on top and 50 on bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it this way now. And so look, I have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. 25 in each section, right? So I have 4 sections of 25 equaling 100, and they want me to shade 17 of them. Let's use a different color. Let's use green because I like green. So 17, let's go 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. Let's try that again. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. Let's do that down here as well. 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, and then 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. So let's count this out. This is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 62, 64, 66, 68. So I have just shaded 68 out of 100, or 68%. The decimal is 0.68 or 68 hundredths. And guess what? If you reduce 68 over 100, you would get 17 over 25. Last three, we are given decimals. Shade 0.57 of the graph, or 57 hundredths of the grid, and record the percent and decimal names for, not the percent, it's percent and fraction names. Mistake. It's okay. So 57, that's simple. It's just 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then 7 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There it is. That is 57 out of 100, which is 57%. And that is 57 out of 100. Shade 0.5 of the grid, that's 5 hundredths. That's simple. 5 hundredths. 5 hundredths is 5%. And that is 5 over 100 as a fraction. And finally, 0.63, that's 63 hundredths. Let's do a different color for the fun of it. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then 3. Okay. There we go. Didn't do the best shading job, but I tried. So 63 hundredths is 63 hundredths, or 63%. So there it is. That is our introduction to percents and fractions and decimals and how they're all linked. Remember, a percent means out of 100. And a fraction, how do you write it as a fraction? Well, make a fraction out of 100. Those fractions can be reduced and simplified oftentimes, so make sure you keep that in mind. And how do you write that as a decimal? Well, write it in the hundredths form. So 50% is 50 hundredths. If you had 5%, like you did down here, that's 5 hundredths, which is written this way. So go ahead and answer some percent-related questions on your own. Good luck.